Okay, welcome everybody. Sorry that we're a little bit late. You try and plan for all the technical things that can happen and they still surprise you. So we will start with an acknowledgement of country. So today we're meeting on Nutarita, Aboriginal land, sea and waterways, and online, also in many other locations across Australia. I acknowledge with deep respect the traditional owners of the land, the Muwinina people, on which we meet today, and the First Nations peoples of the land on which the people online are meeting. The Muwinina people belong to the oldest continuing culture in the world. They cared and protected country for thousands of years. They knew this land, they lived on the land, and they died on these lands, and I honour them. For the Muwinina people, the area around Nipaluna was their country, and they called Mount Wellington Kunyani. I acknowledge that it is a privilege to stand on country and walk in the footsteps of those before us. Beneath the mountain, among the gums and waterways that continue to run through the veins of the Tasmanian Aboriginal community. I pay my respects to elders past and present, and to the many Aboriginal people that did not make elder status, and to the Tasmanian Aboriginal community that continue to care for country. I recognise a history of truth, which acknowledges the impacts of invasion and colonisation upon Aboriginal people, resulting in the forcible removal from their lands. Our island is deeply unique, with spectacular landscapes, with our cities and towns surrounded by bushland, wilderness, mountain ranges and beaches. I stand for a future that profoundly respects and acknowledges Aboriginal perspectives, culture, language and history, and a continued effort to fight for Aboriginal justice and rights, paving the way for a strong future. And as we all know, the land on which agriculture occurs also is country, and it's very important to look after that as well. And that's lots of things that we're talking about today. So welcome to students who are presenting and other students. Welcome to industry partners. Welcome to the Ag Institute and TIA and UTAS staff and the loved ones of the people who are presenting today, because we have to acknowledge that this is a team effort, and often your loved ones are very important in getting you to this point. It is a privilege for me to be the honours coordinator and to work with you guys for a year in, quite closely, really. I mean, my own students who I supervise, but also all of you. And it's one of my favourite parts of my job. And this is really a culmination of 3-4 years of your studying. So it's such a pleasure to watch these, and for many of you, we've watched you all the way from first year all the way to this point. And so it's lovely to see. In terms of housekeeping, for those in the room, the fire exit is there. It's the only door in the room. And the muster point is in the car park, sort of on the outside of the campus, if you see what I mean. I don't expect there to be a fire at all, but you never know. So you've got to be prepared. If you need to leave, then that's absolutely fine. But if you try and leave quietly, and if you can try and leave between the talks, that would be awesome, particularly because we have sort of forced to be in a room which has an entrance near where the presenter's presenting. It's never ideal. It's what happened. So Stanley Burbury is not fit for use at the moment. So this is where we are. If you're online, then an online audience, I believe that your microphones and videos, and I believe, yes, the microphones and videos are not enabled, but the chat function and the raised hand function may well be able to be used, particularly the chat function. So chat's not working. Right, okay. There is a Q&A function, apparently, I've been told. Yes, so you can, yes, so the chat function is not working, the raised hand function isn't working on purpose, apparently, but the Q&A one is working, and Deepa has very kindly offered to look after that. So you are not forgotten, people who are watching online. And what you can do is just put your question in there, and then she will read them out, or selection of them out when at the end of each talk. And hopefully Deepa can also make a little note of the ones that were not answered. That's all right.
Who's managing the Zoom? Oh. So I can see.
So for honours, the presentations will be 12 minutes long, and then about 3 to 5 minutes of questions. And for the master's students, the last 2 students, they are 15 minutes long, and they'll have 5 minutes of questions as well. Just so you know, this is being recorded for perpetuity, I guess, so that we can use that and have those available to people who are not able to make it today live. So if you don't want to be recorded, please let us know as soon as possible. And that's about it, really. So what I'll do is I'll ask the first person to come up, and I have forgotten my thing. I think it's Will. So Will's the first presenter today, so he'll come up and he'll just get his thing on the screen. Just so you know, this QR code is for people marking, so primarily members of staff. So if they've forgotten the link and they don't have the link, you can just hold up your phone to the QR code, and you should be able to access that link to be able to mark. Because sometimes I think we forget that the honours seminars are really all about you know, getting you to the end of having your honours degree. Perfect. Yep. Yep. You grab yours. Just make sure it works. I'm not going to stand here the whole time. Yeah. Just click on yourself. Perfect. Cool. All right. So first up, Will is talking about waterlogging tolerance among advanced breeding lines of strawberry clover. Take it away.
All right, no worries. Thanks everyone for coming today. So as Beth said, I'm Will, and looked at the waterlogging tolerance of strawberry clover. So firstly, I'll just take you through some background before we get into the crux of the project. So waterlogging is a primary stress experienced by plants. So waterlogging fills the soil pores and displaces air that plants require for respiration. Waterlogging in plants decreases any energy production by 95%, which has important consequences for the metabolism of plants. So the occurrence is increasing within southeastern Australia. Australia has a highly variable and changing climate. Rainfall events are expected to decrease, although the intensity of these events are expected to increase, leading to more frequent periods of waterlogging, much like the events on the southeast coast of Australia over the last couple of years. So 4.7 million hectares were waterlogged in 2001, and this is expected to increase to 17 million in 2050. So waterlogging induces a number of symptoms in plants: a decrease in growth of roots and shoots, a decline in leaf water potential, slowed metabolite movement, and reduced chlorophyll concentrations. So legumes play a very important role in pastures. They provide several benefits to the grazing animal, including increased animal intake, high digestibility and high protein levels. Fixation of atmospheric nitrogen decreases the reliance on applied nitrogen fertilisers, and the incorporation of legumes into the sward lengthens the growing season while providing a more resilient feed base to seasonal variations. So there's a number of adaptive strategies that plants implement to overcome waterlogging stress. Firstly, adventitious root production. It's an adaptive stress response induced under waterlogging conditions and developed as part of the root system. They differ from primary roots as they emerge because of the stress, and the primary role is to support and replace primary root function and the diffusion of oxygen under stressed conditions. Next, the Aaron-Coleman development provides a pathway for oxygen throughout the roots in waterlogged conditions, enabling internal aeration and preventing the senescence of root tips. So this is triggered by ethylene accumulation, which increases in roots under hypoxic conditions. There's very few species have constitutive Aaron-Coleman, as it appears to reduce the competitiveness of the species. And lastly, there we have a maintenance system conductance, which involves maintaining a high percentage of the output. And lastly, endodermal barrier to radial oxygen loss. so maintaining ion uptake and transport of oxygen through the roots through the development of endodermis, also with the aid of Arenchyma. So strawberry clover is a prostrate stoloniferous perennial legume, which was introduced to Australia to overcome acidity, salinity and productivity constraints from waterlogging on white clover and lucerne crops. Strawberry clover has been identified by Stevenson as the best adapted clover species for waterlogged conditions, displaying excellent tolerance to other species she evaluated. There's a large amount of variation exists in strawberry clover wild populations, presenting an opportunity to breed well-adapted lines to fit niche environments. Advanced breeding lines exist, but no thorough testing or comparisons have been made to the commercial cultivar Palestine as of yet. Some of the research questions of the project. Firstly, do any of the 3 advanced breeding lines outperform the cultivar Palestine, which is the most commonly used cultivar in industry today? Next, is greater Arenchyma development and adventitious root production associated with waterlogging tolerance? And lastly, is a decrease in spat and stomatal conductance measurements associated with waterlogging symptoms? So on to the treatments of the project. 4 breeding lines were used. So firstly, Palestine, which I just said was the commercial cultivar used in industry today, and 3 advanced breeding lines, Straub Tas 2824 and Tas 2784. And so the 2 waterlogging treatments in the project. Firstly, a waterlog involved filling the plastic tubs 10 mils over the soil potted surface, totally inundating the roots. And the control treatment involved filling the tubs with 50 mils of water every so often. So this was only done once the soil surface